Hello guys, it's Marcin here. Today I would like to show you a quick and easy tutorial on using Corona MultiMap. So I have prepared this image here, and as you can see it's an exterior scene, and I have two versions of this scene. So this is the first one and this is the second one. Let me just restart this viewer. Yeah, okay, so this is the first one, and this is the second one. And you should see some differences between these two images. First of all, you will probably notice the trees. So in this first image, all the trees have the same shade of green. So everything looks pretty uniform. And in the second image, the trees have different shades of green and some yellowish hues. So this is more like an autumn scene. And also there are some tiny details, like the grass here. You can see that same as with the trees. This version has a uniformly green grass everywhere. And the second one has these slightly different patches of brighter and darker shades of green. So these are some tiny details, but I think that they affect the way this image is perceived. So how to do this? One way would be to create different materials for each of the grass clumps or each of the trees, or create a few materials and randomly apply them to different models. But this can be easily automated using one of Corona's native maps, which is Corona MultiMap. So now let's switch to 3ds Max. And this is the scene without Corona MultiMap. So everything is pretty uniform. All the trees have the same material assigned to leaves. All the grass has the same material, and also, which I haven't showed you, is that the stones have slightly different materials assigned. So let's begin with the trees, as this will be probably most apparent. So now I will just select some of the trees and isolate them so that we can see what we are doing. Okay, and I will also unhide my sun. This should be this. Okay, so now we should be able to see the changes which we are doing in real time. And I will also increase exposure a little bit to see everything clearly. Okay, so these are our trees. And now let's find their material. Okay, this should be it. It's a free model and free texture from this people. So it starts with VP. And now we have leaves material here. Sorry, I used Polish name actually, so I will just change this to leaves. Okay, and now we have our diffuse color and translucency. So what we would like to do is change the color of individual trees. So I will just pick our color slot and place Corona MultiMap here. Okay, we have our multimap, and now you should be able to see what it does. But first we should change the mode to instance. Okay, so basically this distributes these colors over here over different objects. So this is pretty obvious. If we change the colors to, let's say, red and blue, then you can see that some of the trees became red and some others became blue. So we have also different modes here, but I won't be talking about this. You can just check this yourself. This is pretty self-explanatory what each of these settings does. So let's leave this as instance. And let's create 3 colors. And the first one will be some standard green. So I will just copy the old value. Okay, and I will copy this everywhere actually. And now let's create some variations. So one of them will be a little bit darker and maybe less saturated, maybe even a bit darker. Okay, and the other one will be brighter. So let's make it slightly brighter and a bit yellowish. Okay. So you can see that that the trees have different colors now. Maybe I will even unhide some other trees. Okay. There is a lot more of these trees, so this should be easier to see. Okay, you can clearly see that the trees have different colors, and now to make it even more realistic, we will introduce some mixing to these materials. So what it does, if I type 100% here, then everything will get uniform, as all the colors are mixed using the same value. So if I switch to 2 and once again create red and let's say green material, this will create this uniform mix of red and green. If I switch to 50%, some of the trees will be pure green, some of the trees will be pure red, and some of them will have a mixture of these 2 colors, so the values will be somewhere in between. And the lower numbers will produce more contrast between these colors, and higher values will blend the colors together. So let's get back to our standard config. So I will just get back to some standard green color in the first slot, some darker green in the second slot. Okay, and a little bit of blending, so let's maybe type 25% here. And we can also add another slot, and maybe let's make it look like it's autumn. So I will just create some orangish trees, and it looks pretty nice. So you can experiment with these values, because setting 0 over here will just create these extremely orange trees, and setting to high value like 90% will just blend all the colors together. So I think something like 50% should be okay. Yeah, pretty nice. Okay, so now let's move to some other objects. So I will exit isolation mode. Okay, the scene needs to reload, right? And now we can also change the color of grass and some other objects. So this will be pretty much the same. So without many explanations, I will just isolate these grass clumps which are scattered and change the material. So we need the grass material. Yeah, it's this one. And now we want to create different colors for different grass clumps. So let's create a new Corona MultiMap. Okay, let's just plug it into diffuse color. Okay, great. Yeah, let's change mode to instance. And it works just like with the trees. So let's create maybe 3 items, and again some kind of green, some darker and less saturated color maybe, and some brighter and more yellowish and less saturated one. Okay, and now let's blend it a little bit again. And to make it even more apparent, we should increase diffuse level. Okay, maybe too much. Yeah, this should be fine. Okay, and now a slightly different thing will be the stones. So let me just select the stones when it reloads. Okay, the stones should be here. Right, and these are some really tiny stones scattered on the shore. And let's take this material, stones. Okay, and okay, we've got a bump map here, so we can even zoom closer to see an individual stone and some other stones. Okay, and now again let's create a Corona multimap, plug it into diffuse. Let's give it some stone looking colors, so maybe let's create 3 of them again, and let's make something almost gray. Let's make something a little more greenish. Okay, and let's make something a little more brownish. Great. And why can't we see this? Because diffuse is very low, and also because reflectivity is enabled, and most of all because mode is set to material ID instead of instance. Okay, so maybe they are a bit too colorful, so I will just decrease diffuse level. Okay, and let's just adjust the colors to make the stones a bit more realistic. Yeah, maybe something like this. And let's blend this a bit, maybe even more. And like with the trees, I would like to add some more distinct color. So let's make another one, and let's make it maybe some saturated brownish color. Okay, and now we can play with mixing them. So maybe something like 60% will be okay. Okay. And now, why did I say that this will be something different? I would also like to introduce some variation to the reflectivity amount of these stones. So I will create another multimap, plug this into reflection color. So basically you can use this in any slot you wish, in reflections, refractions, bump maps, everything. So let's enable reflectivity now. And I will create only 2 versions of reflectivity. One of them will be pure black, okay, and the other one will be pure white. And what we have now should be stones where again we need to change to instance. Some of them are completely non-reflective and some of them are completely reflective. So now we will simply create a blend between these 2 states. So let's maybe type 50% here, and we will have some slight difference in reflectivity. Okay, let's now exit isolation mode. Let's go to our main camera. I will just change the exposure value back to -2.5. Okay, and we can simply render this straight away. Okay, Corona will need to parse the scene, and it's ready. So while it's rendering, okay, I must have enabled some kind of region rendering, but you can see that it renders pretty fast, and like in the previous images, you can see that some of the trees are slightly yellowish or orangish, and some of them are more freshly green, and the grass clumps are a bit different. And you can also see the stones, which I didn't show you in the previous example. Okay, so basically that's all. You are free to experiment with the MultiMap, and there is just one more thing I would like to show you as a bonus. So I will open another scene. Okay, this one. And here I have created a simple group of objects using particles. So just to show you that the MultiMap can be used along with particles. Okay, that's just one event. Okay, that's all. And now I would like to show you that that it works. And what is even more interesting, that you can create different materials using Corona MultiMap. So all these particles have only one material assigned, which is this one. So let's maybe call this particles. And I will render this very quickly. So this is what it looks like. And now let's change the colors to something else. And I would like to simulate 3 different materials using only one material actually. So one of them will be, let's say, glass. So let's set diffuse color to pure black. The other one will be some kind of metal, so maybe just a little bit of diffuse. And the last one will be some kind of plastic, so maybe let's make it pink. And that's all here. So we only have to remember that the order in which the different parameters are set. So the first one will be glass, second one will be metal, and the last one will be plastic. So let's get back to other settings, and this has to be set to instance. Okay, so let's get back to reflectivity now. Create Corona MultiMap, and just as before, we will set for glass reflectivity to pure white, for metal to pure white also, and for the plastic we will just make it maybe somewhere in the middle. Okay, and again I do this in the same order that I did for the diffuse color. Okay, and now let's enable reflectivity. Okay, now let's take this old map into glossiness. Sorry, not instance, copy. And let's say the glass won't be glossy at all. So let's leave this at white. The metal will be slightly glossy, and the plastic will be very glossy. Okay, and let's see what we have now. Okay, you can already see that it works, but we will also need refraction, and most importantly we will need Fresnel IOR for reflectivity. So let's take our MultiMap again and place this in refraction color slot. Okay, copy. And let's enable this, and as we decided at the beginning, this will be glass, so let's make it white. This will be metal, so we don't want it to be transparent at all. And this will be plastic, so we don't want it transparent too. Okay, let's render now. And you can see that it works just fine. So our glass has become transparent, refractive. Okay, so the last thing, which I already talked about, is Fresnel IOR. So how to do this? If we simply copy this MultiMap into Fresnel IOR, you won't see the correct effect. Let's render this. And obviously something is not right here. The reflections are almost completely gone. So how to enable this? We need to place either Corona solid color here, Corona color, or we can also use the 3ds Max native output map, but let's just use Corona color. Okay, so the first one would be Fresnel IOR for glass. So let's put white color in here. Okay, and basically output multiplier here is the value which will be interpreted as Fresnel IOR. So for glass we can for example set this to 2 to make it more shiny. Okay, and let's render this, and you can see that it works. For the metal we can use something like maybe even 32. You can see this material here, right? And again it works. And for the plastic, let's make it somewhere in between, so maybe like 4. Okay, and we have a kind of pink plastic thing. Okay, so basically we have 3 different materials with completely different characteristics, made using only one Corona material, which was applied to particles. So maybe you will find this method useful in some scenarios. So once again, I simply placed Corona multimap in different slots, overriding the values which were used by default in these slots. So the only thing I had to remember about is the order of the values. So the first one was always for glass, the second one was always for the metal, and the third one was always for the plastic. And I had to place them exactly in the same order for all of the other slots. So for reflection, glass, metal and plastic; for glossiness, glass, metal and plastic, etc, etc. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this and that you will find it useful. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for other Corona related tutorials.